Did you know that you can actually build muscle with just your mind? Or that there's a food that burns calories when you eat it? What about the fact that there's a relationship between your grip strength and your life expectancy? Well, these are just a few of the 50 facts nobody tells you about fitness and building muscle. So pay attention, since we're about to go over some awesome tips for real muscle gains, including our favorite of all time. See if you can guess which one. So let's get right into it. For fact number 1, we're going to start with a big misconception, and that is that building muscle size is not the same as building strength. While a bigger muscle has more potential to be a stronger muscle, these two adaptations occur from completely different physiological processes. Muscle size is actually a change to the architecture of the muscle, while building strength is from an improvement in the neurological system of the existing muscle. Of course, there is a crossover, but if you want to optimize both, you should train for both of them, specifically strength. Why strength? Because of fact number 2. Increasing training volume, or the total amount of weight a muscle lifts, is the primary training variable to increase muscle size, with most recommending moderate loads of 70 to 80% of a 1-rep max for around 8 to 12 reps. But you can use heavier loads, 85% of a 1-rep max or even higher, and studies show that using heavier loads is vastly superior. So if you want to get big, get strong first. But muscles aren't the only thing that gets stronger with resistance training. Fact 3. Lifting weights can also increase your bone strength. When a heavier load is placed on the bone, the excessive weight causes it to bend slightly, causing minor fractures. These fractures are then filled with what are called osteoblasts that trigger new bone growth. To optimize this adaptation, you need to perform heavy load-bearing exercises such as squats and deadlifts. Now, fact number 4 might really surprise you. Did you know that lifting weights can actually increase your flexibility too? Well, as long as you use the full range of motion. From a flexibility perspective, look at the movements you perform under load. Deep squats, overhead pressing, lunges. These movements require mobility in the hips, ankles, and shoulders. This doesn't mean you don't need any other flexibility or mobility training, but you can rest assured that resistance training with a full range of motion isn't going to impede your flexibility and will likely improve it. However, you need to be careful about your flexibility because, fact number 5, too much flexibility can actually decrease performance and be just as dangerous as not being flexible enough. And increasing flexibility too much will actually decrease the stability of a joint. It sounds crazy based on what we just looked at, but stay with us. If involved in impact sports or situations in which the joint experiences a high amount of force, the lack of stability in the joint may result in injury. So, what to do? Well, simply keep your flexibility in line for your lifestyle. Now let's get back to building muscle with number 6. Unfortunately, we need to tell you that building muscle gets progressively harder the longer you train. Everyone loves beginner gains, which refer to when a person starts lifting and gains muscle fast and easy. That's the fun period, but the bad thing is that if gaining muscle is easy when you start, that means it gets harder later on. While you might put on 20 pounds in your first year, you'll be happy to get 5 pounds in your 3rd and 4th years. But here's the good news with fact number 7. Once you gain muscle, keeping it is relatively easy. A big review from 2021 found that the minimum threshold to maintain muscle mass is surprisingly small. Training each muscle group once a week with 1 set to failure will maintain your muscle mass for a total of 32 weeks. To be clear, that means that you can perform 1 set of bench presses, 1 set of bent over rows, 1 set of military presses, 1 set of squats, and 1 set of deadlifts once a week and be good for 32 weeks. Now, in order to get this muscle, you need to pay attention to this next fact. It is literally the most important principle in lifting. Fact number 8. You must apply the principle of progressive overload. The simple explanation is you need to do more work than the week before. Sounds easy, but many lifters mess this up and think that simply training hard is all they need to do. Absolutely, you need to train hard, but this must include more weight or more reps and sets. You're basically convincing your body it needs more muscle to survive. This is why tracking your program is so important. Later on, we'll tell you the absolute easiest variable to manipulate to apply progressive overload. But first, we have fact number 9, which is that program jumping will be your demise. As you begin your lifting journey, you'll come across dozens and dozens of programs, all claiming to be the best. You'll have to wait and learn later which program is really the best one, but for now, what you need to know is that you don't want to jump programs. This refers to following a program for a couple of weeks, then seeing a cooler one and jumping over to it. To see progress, you must follow a plan and apply progressive overload for muscle growth, not hop from one routine to the next routine. Your body simply cannot adapt overnight. Now, in order to optimize for muscle growth, you need to understand fact number 10, which is that your muscle doesn't grow evenly. Your muscle is not one solid piece of tissue. In reality, it's composed of individual fibers. Further, a muscle can have several heads. This is where different attachment points merge together to form one muscle belly. So here's the thing. Recent research has shown that if you perform a single exercise, your muscle will experience different amounts of growth in different areas. This can happen throughout the muscle, even on the same head, and even in a single muscle fiber. This uneven growth brings us to number 11, which is that you need to implement a variety of exercises that use different biomechanics and angles to train the same muscle group. While this has been a common practice in the gym for quite some time, we now have studies to back up that practice. For example, to hit the chest, use flat barbell bench press, incline dumbbell press, dips, and cable fly. 4 chest exercises with 4 different movement patterns means optimal growth. On the other hand, fact number 12 tells us that bro splits are likely suboptimal for muscle growth. Now, of course, they will work, at least if you can apply progressive overload. However, studies have shown that instead of training a muscle once a week, training it twice a week may lead to better results. For example, instead of using 6 exercises to train a muscle in a single session, you should train a muscle 2 times a week using 3 exercises in each session. This results in more accumulation of higher quality volume. While we all want more muscles for aesthetics, there is another even more important reason to accumulate muscle mass. Fact number 13. Your muscle mass index, or MMI, can determine your longevity. Your muscle mass index is the relationship between your height and the total amount of muscle mass you hold. Longer-term studies have been conducted which tracked the health of older populations for 15 to 16 years. A direct relationship was found between their MMI and longevity. In other words, those who held more muscle mass lived longer. This is why it's important to have a long life habit of resistance training to always have adequate amounts of muscle mass. Still, even if you're older and have never trained, it's not too late to start. That's because of our 14th fact, which is that the elderly can still also gain muscle. There's a common misconception that we can only build muscle during our younger years, and that our only hope as we age is to hold on to as much muscle as possible. Now, there's a ton of nuance in this belief, but it's wrong. While it might be easier to grow muscle during your younger years, the truth is you can put on muscle mass at just about any age. Depending on your current fitness level, research has shown it is possible to gain muscle well into your older years. How old? Well, this review saw greater increases of muscle mass from 1.5% to a staggering 15.6% in individuals who were 75 years and older. So you're truly never too old to start. But regardless of your age, you need to be aware of fact 15. Drinking alcohol is doing you no favors. Sorry for being a buzzkill, pun intended. In fact, it's hurting your progress from multiple angles. For one, it activates your AGRP neurons. These are your starvation neurons, which trigger a stronger appetite. Secondly, it disturbs your sleep, which decreases recovery, decreases testosterone, and promotes a catabolic environment. And third and fourth, it disrupts muscle protein synthesis and delays recovery. You can still build muscle by drinking moderately, but it's going to be blunted, so it's up to you to weigh if it's worth it. Now, even if you do choose to partake once in a while, you still need to practice fact number 16. Warm-ups are vital to optimize performance. We can often brush off warm-ups as they're just a mere formality, something we do because we're supposed to do it. Other people see warm-ups as just a means to prevent injury. In reality, one of the primary benefits of a proper warm-up is improved performance in the gym. This is especially true with warm-up sets, which were found to increase the amount that could be lifted during working sets. So spend the extra 10 to 15 minutes to properly warm up. Some other ideas that are outdated? How about number 17, taking ice baths after workouts? Ice baths have made a huge impact on the fitness industry in the past few years. Everywhere you look on social media, you see them. However, while it does have some benefits for recovery and muscle soreness, it gets sketchy when it comes to muscle growth, and research has shown it can actually inhibit both muscle growth and strength gains. This may be confusing, but you must understand that while related, recovery and muscle growth are two separate processes. While researchers aren't positive why this occurs, they believe it has something to do with an ice bath decreasing inflammation, which would usually trigger an anabolic response. We hope we're not bursting your bubble with these last couple, but we have another one you need to know. Fact number 18. The keto diet is not good for muscle growth. The keto diet is another practice that's gained a lot of popularity as of late. However, studies show it seems to hinder your ability to build muscle. That doesn't mean it's impossible to gain muscle on a keto diet, but studies show it is significantly more difficult. Now, to be clear, as the keto diet enhances your body's ability to utilize fat for energy, it might actually hold extra benefits to preserve muscle while in a caloric deficit. However, if building muscle is an important goal, you might want to save keto until you reach your desired amount of muscle mass. For number 19, while we're talking about misconceptions, let's talk about how muscle confusion is not a thing. Muscle confusion became popular years ago with the training program P90X. The idea is that in order to optimize muscle growth, you must, quote, trick your muscles and train it with random exercises on a daily basis. Well, remember fact 8 about progressive overload. In order to apply progressive overload, there needs to be structure to your program so that you can utilize an exercise for a minimal amount of time, which is generally 4 weeks. However, that doesn't mean you never switch exercises. Just don't do it every session. Instead, follow fact number 20 and switch exercises every 4 to 8 weeks. That is, as long as muscle hypertrophy is your primary goal. After you train for a period, you'll find these exercises become stagnant and your progress will start to slow. At this time, you can swap out your exercise with ones that have similar biomechanics. Swap the barbell bench press for flat bench dumbbell press or bent over rows with the T-bar row. For number 21, we're going to get psychic. Well, kind of, because you can build muscle with your mind. Now, you can't merely wish muscles into existence. However, you can actively contract your muscle with intentional focus, which is able to induce muscle growth. For example, a study had participants perform a movement while also visualizing in their minds that they were performing that same movement. The twist? They didn't actually have anything in their hands. They were pretending. However, they found that even with no weight, just visualizing caused an increase in muscle growth. This is also one of the mechanisms behind our next fact. Fact number 22 is that building a mind-muscle connection actually works. Emerging studies have shown that focusing on the intended muscle while training can lead to higher activation and muscle growth. It's basically an easy hack that lets you build more muscle without actually doing more work. Here's another useful tip for fact 23. Training with a partner will likely lead to better gains. That's right, if you're like most people, you probably will see better results lifting with someone, since studies show that supervised training likely results in more muscle growth and strength gains. Inexperienced lifters may just need the guidance of a trainer as they don't understand how much they can lift. On the other hand, experienced lifters might just push more due to the competition aspect or the extra motivation from a friend being present. With that said, you and your lifting partner may see different results due to the next fact. Fact number 24 is that genetics will play a role in your progress. Sure, some people will use genetics as an excuse to not try and get in shape, and while for many, that's all it is, an excuse. However, truth is that genetics do play a role in your ability to progress, and even dictate your top physique that can be reached. For example, your bone structure can determine how much muscle you can carry. The insertion of a muscle can alter the shape and perceived size of that muscle. There's even certain genes that make it easier to gain muscle compared to other people. The point being that two people who put in the same effort in the gym can have different results. This just means to focus on yourself and don't always compare yourself to others. Another example of how genetics play a role in lifting is found at fact number 25. Your limbs can dictate what exercises you perform. For example, individuals with long legs and short torsos are better suited for the sumo deadlift. On the contrary, those with short legs generally do better with conventional ones. This is also why your perfect form for certain exercises will look different from another person's. Fact number 26 is very important, at least if you want to have a functional core, and that your core's primary job is not to perform crunches. The best way to train a muscle is to look at its function. With that in mind, how often do you walk around while crunching over repeatedly? The answer is you don't. Rather, you stand straight and tall. This is because your abs are built to stiffen your core in an isometric fashion to prevent movement of the spine. For example, if you are suddenly jerked, your abs stiffen to prevent shock to your spine. Performance-wise, they stiffen so that you can generate power by rotating at the hips, such as when swinging a baseball bat. With that said, include anti-rotation exercises in your program, such as the Pallof press, wood chops, and suitcase carries. Speaking of your abs, we need to talk about number 27. Your core includes your abs, but it's not only your abs. When people hear core, they think abs. And the core does include the abs, but it also includes your erector spinae, or your lower back. Some go as far to say the core even includes the entire torso. Regardless, when you do core training, be sure you're training your lower back as well, or you might suffer from a muscle imbalance. The good thing is anti-rotation exercises work well, but also include some movements such as back extensions. For fact number 28, we're going to talk about grip, specifically the fact that it's another great indicator of mortality. Out of all training goals, increasing grip strength is rarely at the top of anyone's priority list in the fitness community. However, it's becoming a critical measurement in the healthcare industry, and for good reason. More and more studies are finding that your grip strength is an effective indicator of your mortality. In fact, an inverse relationship has been found with your grip strength and all-cause mortality, as well as cause-specific mortality. This includes cancer and cardiovascular disease. You might think this is because sick people are weak and lose their grip strength, but interestingly, there even seems to be a dose-response relationship, which means that a stronger grip also equals a longer life. But there's another reason to increase your grip too: elbow pain. Fact number 29 is that weak forearm muscles are a major cause of elbow pain. Now, there are quite a few different causes of elbow pain, but one of the most common ones is a condition called lateral epicondylalgia, better known as tennis elbow. Tennis elbow is caused by inflammation of the extensor carpi radialis, one of the extensor muscles located on the anterior of your forearm. The inflammation occurs at the origin located at the elbow, which generally results from overuse, either from prolonged or repeated gripping movements. The good thing is that fixing this is easy. Just be sure to include grip-specific exercises in your training, such as one of our favorites, farmer walks. For the next few facts, let's dismantle some more misconceptions and popular sayings. First up is fact number 30, abs are not made in the kitchen. Abs are made in the kitchen is a tired gimmick that aims to emphasize the importance of nutrition in achieving a six-pack. However, it's not really true. Your abs are muscles which grow in the same manner as every other muscle by applying progressive overload. If not, you'll never see abs regardless of how skinny you are, as they'll be too small. Therefore, your abs are made in the gym, and you see them by what you do in the kitchen. This runs together with fact 31, the saying nutrition is 80% of your success and the gym is 20%. Wrong. If your nutrition is on point but your training is all over the place, you won't make the progress you want. At the same time, if your training is dialed in but your nutrition is all over the place, you're also not going to see the results you want. Don't pit these two against each other as if it's competition. In fact, they work together, so give both 100% of your effort. Fact number 32 is going to take this one step further. Sleep and recovery are just as important as your training and nutrition. Your sleep and recovery can both have a dramatic effect on your overall progress, and skimping on either will make a serious dent in your progress. Skimping on sleep can mess up your hormones and make it easier to gain fat yet harder to lose muscle. On the other hand, not allowing full recovery will consistently break your body down, making it impossible to progress. On that note, fact number 33, you can make gains without pain. While there are times that training will be uncomfortable, it is not the ultimate goal. As we've mentioned with progressive overload, your goal is to do more work than you did before. This will sometimes be accompanied with soreness and sometimes not. Not, quote, feeling it has little to no effect on the effectiveness of your session. As long as you successfully accomplish progressive overload, you're going to grow. Do not chase soreness. Fact number 34, a calorie is a calorie, is an oversimplification. While it's a pretty good summary of what you need to do to lose weight, it implies that all calories are created equal. This isn't exactly true, as the source matters. For example, the thermal effect of food, or TEF, is the amount of calories required to digest and absorb a food. Fat has a very low TEF, 0 to 3%, while protein has a TEF of 20 to 30%. On the other hand, you need to be concerned with your macronutrients and your micronutrients. Therefore, pay attention to your calories and the quality of your diet. It's not just about calories. So, what should you eat? Well, fact number 35 is that the best diet in the world is, drumroll please, the one you can adhere to. That might not be the answer you're looking for, but studies have shown that no diet has a significant advantage in the long term. And the one factor that did dictate better success was simply one that a person could adhere to. Any diet that can help you control your calories will work. Therefore, you should simply follow what you can stick with, and rest assured you don't need to try other diets. For fact number 36, we want to talk about supplements. Simply put, most of them are a waste of money. The supplements industry's main goal is to make money, which leads to claims of instant gains and melting fat. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen for most in the real world. Remember, supplements are supplementary to your diet. Stop putting so much emphasis on them when your diet is far from sufficient. With that said, fact number 37 is going to save you money, since here are the supplements that studies say might actually be worth it. Protein powder is a simple, cheap way to get protein, so it's definitely worth your money if you need help eating enough. After protein powder, creatine is the most studied and effective supplement on the market. Plus, it's also cheap. If you're not taking creatine, then you're doing it wrong. Third, caffeine is the most effective ingredient in pre-workouts. Therefore, caffeine pills are a very cheap way to get caffeine. And the last two are a maybe: beta-alanine and EAA. You probably don't need it, but it might help. Anything else? Not worth your time. Next question. Have you jumped on the fasted training bandwagon yet? Well, you want to pay attention to fact number 38. Fasted training is not necessarily better for losing weight. Again, fasted training is when you exercise in a fasted state, meaning you haven't eaten for at least 8 hours. It's claimed that this will burn more fat. In some sense, this is true, as your body can become more fat adapted, meaning it can burn fat for fuel easier. However, assuming you eat the same amount of calories, studies have shown it's no better than training in a fed state. This is because your body will still burn the same amount of calories, whether it comes from fat or carbs. Burning fat is not the same as losing fat. With that said, training fasted could actually spell trouble for something else. Fact number 39 is that training fasted could actually mitigate strength gains. Due to the nutritional restraints, training fasted hinders an athlete from consuming protein and carbohydrate around training. Therefore, if you perform some sort of a fasting diet, always train during your feeding window as opposed to the fasting period. We made it to fact number 40. Let's look at another false belief: the post-workout window. The claim is that your body is in an increased anabolic state, so you must eat within 30 minutes of training to capitalize on this. While it is true that training increases muscle protein synthesis, its spike lasts longer than 30 minutes. In fact, as long as you're eating protein every 3 to 4 hours, the need for a post-workout meal is greatly mitigated. The only time it's important is if you train fasted. So while it's a good idea to eat at some point after training, there's no need to stress about it. Let's take fact number 41 to get serious for a sec. While it's great for your health, the reality is that lifting weights can sometimes have a negative effect on your mental health and cause body dysmorphia. Of course, gym life is an awesome habit with a ton of benefits. However, if you're not careful, it can also give rise to some mental disorders. Body dysmorphia can occur in gym goers in the form of muscle dysmorphia. This is when obviously fit people can't see the incredible progress they've made and still think they're too small or not lean enough, and often resort to harmful practices or obsess over it. Be mindful of this and keep reasonable goals in mind. And most of all, be proud of the progress you make. Now, fact number 42 might be a hard pill to swallow for some, but it's a fact of life that you will naturally lose muscle as you age. This natural process is called sarcopenia, and it begins to become especially noticeable after age 50. And this process can increase rapidly in individuals who aren't involved in physical activity. But at the same time, individuals involved in resistance training can fend off detrimental effects until much later. This is yet one more reason for a lifelong habit of training. Don't stop lifting. Something else you can do for your muscles? Fact number 43. Eat the entire egg. A famous study from 2021 showed that by eating a whole egg after resistance training, rather than just the egg white, you can actually increase muscle growth. This includes increases in strength and hypertrophy. This simple hack is believed to be due to the added cholesterol, one of the requirements for production of testosterone. Next, fact number 44. The number one variable for muscle hypertrophy. At the beginning of this video, we talked about progressive overload and mentioned we were going to tell you the number one variable, and here it is. It's volume. We mentioned this briefly, but it's so important we thought it deserves its own fact. Increasing your volume has been found to be the number one factor that dictates muscle growth. For those unaware, volume refers to the amount of work placed on a muscle, such as load times reps times sets. The easiest way to increase volume is to increase load, but you can also add reps or sets. If you apply progressive overload by increasing your volume, you will grow. Fact number 45. Now this is another really important one, so pay attention. The gym is to build or maintain muscle, while nutrition controls our weight. What this means is that your main priority while choosing a resistance training program should not be based on how many calories are burned, but rather how well it can build or preserve muscle. This is because nutrition is by far the best and easiest way to control your diet. Of course, training is going to burn calories. However, we want to use it to improve our musculature, as this is its primary purpose. Fact number 46. Our body is optimized when thought of as a machine. This is probably our favorite fact on the whole list, and it applies to almost everything. You wouldn't put dirty fuel in your car, so why would you do the same to your body? Focus on eating good nutrition. You also wouldn't redline your car consistently, nor let it idle all night. Do the same for your body and allow it to stop and rest once in a while so it doesn't break down. The fact is, your body is the most sophisticated machine we know of, and treating it like one will yield the greatest results. But perhaps our second favorite fact is fact 47. Focus on the basics, as they're responsible for the majority of your gains. Of course, we love learning and implementing new exercises. However, we know that they always come second to the basics. By basics, we mean your big compound movements, such as the squat, bench press, deadlift, rows, and overhead pressing. Also, some bodyweight movements such as dips, push-ups, pull-ups, and chin-ups. Building off that, for fact number 48, progressing in the gym is simple. Concentrate on the basics, apply progressive overload, and eat right. This is all the base of successful lifters. Getting caught up in other nuances is likely just going to stall your progress. Speaking of nuance, as we're almost done, we're going to combine 3 questions for fact number 49. Should you perform HIIT or LISS? HIIT stands for High Intensity Interval Training, which consists of alternating between periods of work and short periods of recovery. On the contrary, LISS stands for Low Intensity Steady State. It consists of working at a low pace for an extended period of time. For example, going on a slow jog for 45 minutes. It's long been debated as to which of the two is better. However, they're not the only ones. For example, other common exercises pitted against each other are pull-ups or chin-ups. Which one should you do? What about sumo versus conventional deadlift? The answer to all these questions: just do it all. There are so many examples where exercises and training methods are pitted against each other as if you can only choose one. The truth is that they all have their own benefits and train different muscle groups or physiological systems. For example, we know that HIIT and LISS both burn similar amounts of fat and both increase VO2 max. However, HIIT trains your anaerobic systems, where LISS trains your aerobic systems. Whenever you come across one of these and don't know which to choose, just include both. And since we've already talked about the best diet, for our last fact, number 50, we're going to talk about the best program. Just like with your diet, the answer is whatever you can stick to. A lifelong habit of fitness is always going to provide the best benefits. Sure, there may be some programs that put on more muscle or strength in the short term, but the ultimate goal is to live longer and live healthier, giving you more and more time to get fit or big or whatever your goal is. And that's simply done by being active your whole life. And there it is. As we went through, we hope you caught on to our main point. Lifting weights is one of the healthiest activities you can get involved in, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Just like fact number 47 said, concentrate on the basics, apply progressive overload, and watch your nutrition. At the same time, there's a lot of knowledge you can gain along the way, and we hope you did.